Hi everyone, my name is Rob and we are back at the cabin in the second episode. I was going to show you the install of the walls, but before we get to that there is so much more work to do. I needed to clear the site, pour foundations, build a platform to put that cabin on, transport all the materials to site and protect it from the weather. And that's what we will cover in this video. I thought about all that while pre-assembling the last timber framed wall for my cabin in my workshop. The very first thing I did was renting an excavator. That's something I look forward to and get excited about every time. Although I have very limited skills, as long as I don't tip that thing over or do anything stupid, there isn't much damage I can do here. While clearing the site of the vegetation, I thought about what foundation I'm going to build. I needed some sort of a platform to build that cabin on. By the way, I replanted all those beautiful ferns. One of my considerations was to just pour a concrete slab on grade, but that would have involved way more groundwork as I was willing to commit. And then the sheer amount of concrete and the cost associated with that, the cost of delivery and pumping, no thank you. So I went with the second option, the so-called isolated footing, or in another term would be a pad footing. I used a 24-inch sauna tube as a pad and a 10-inch sauna tube for the column with rebar hooks coming from the pad up into the columns as reinforcement. Although they are a little trickier to install, those sauna tubes are an absolute time and money saver. I decided to mix the concrete by hand for upper and core muscle exercise with a ratio of 3 shovels of Navijack, which is a premix of gravel and sand, 1 shovel of Portland cement and water. Not too much water. You are not trying to make a soup. Too much water leads to lower tensile strength, more shrinkage and subsequent cracking. A Navi is a laborer who is employed to do hard physical work and is also a British slang term for a laborer who works in excavation or construction of canals. Now with only 6 columns poking out of the ground, this wasn't enough to build that cabin on. I needed a frame floor system on top of the foundation to put that cabin on. The floor system I choose to build consists of 3 yellow cedar beams and pressure-treated joist. I used the 3 beams to cover the span from one footing to the next, and in between I used pressure-treated lumber. I rented the excavator for about a week to prepare the site, digging the holes for the foundations and backfilling after pouring the columns, also moving the floor beams into place. Slow and steady is the name of the game operating this machine, especially when my lovely wife is around to help. Okay, geh mal die Seite. Oh, passt wie ein Arsch auf dem Eimer. Ganz genau richtig, Digi. Sadly, this is the last picture I took of our dog you saw in the first episode of this cabin build. Shortly after, we got a new addition to our family, another rescue dog which was found in the ditch among his siblings in Saskatchewan. I finally had some time to work on the platform, lay out and install the joists in between the beams by using joist hangers. I removed the boards I used to cover and protect the beams with. I didn't necessarily protect them from getting wet. They were still moist when I installed them. More so, I wanted to protect them from getting beaten up by the sun, which essentially causes damage to wood by drying out the surface too fast, and therefore different parts of the wood dry at different rates and can lead to warping and distortion, splitting and cracking. Laying out the joist on the beams is a very simple task. Just follow the marks on your measuring tape, 16 inch on center, and your plywood will hit the joist every time. It's not brain surgery. If you can read a measuring tape and being capable of swinging a hammer, you can call yourself a carpenter in North America. It's that simple. I just bitched about the 2x material. Any lumber you buy, it's like a 1/4 inch difference or more.
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Between the rough and then the.
Well, you have the width, right? First of all, the center's probably different again. But if you hang it in joist hangers,
Okay.
and you nail your joist hanger to 9 1/4, that's what they're supposed to be. Then you have 9 inch, you have 9 3/8. So now you're creating already a problem with your plywood, with your subfloor.
Yeah.
It's a pain.
Where did you get them?
It doesn't matter; they're all the same. No matter where you go.
Oh, really?
No matter where you go, it's manufacturer. Maybe there's a better manufacturer out there, but I think they send it somewhere else in the world. And
These are quite moist too.
Yeah, I know. I want them moist because they're gonna dry out and they're gonna look like pretzels once they're dry, and you cannot install the stuff. I know. After installing the joist, I cut 1/2 inch plywood to fit in between the joists, supported by 1.5 inch strips nailed flush to the bottom of the 2x10. The plywood keeps the insulation in place and secure from critters. I filled remaining gaps with spray foam before installing the insulation. I used R28 mineral wool insulation, 7 1/4 inches thick, or 184 millimeters, which translates to a U value of 0.0357 watts per meter square Kelvin. To be honest, I have no idea what all that means. I go by the motto, the thicker the insulation, the better it will insulate. Now that the insulation between the joists is all installed, I move ahead and install my second-hand plywood. Because that plywood came from a dismantled movie set I helped to build in 2022. Back then, I did not pay attention to the fact that this plywood came from a different batches or different manufacturers. And it still annoys me till today that I didn't notice the difference in the tongue and groove between the different plywood sheets until I started using and installing it. Anyway, just have a look at this and let this be a reminder to be cautious, or at least to be aware of the possibility that there are different types of tongue and groove, so-called 3/4 inch standard plywood, one with 5 layers and the other with 6 layers, or plies. At the end of the day, I created a bit more offcut than I hoped for. Now that I have a deck to build my cabin on, I started moving the beams and posts for the first floor walls onto the platform. It might seem like a bit of a struggle doing all this work by oneself. It's not. All it really does, it takes more time. That's it. covering the whole thing with a big top to prevent the lumber from getting wet, but my biggest concern was to keep the insulation dry. As I mentioned earlier, now I had room on my sawhorses to store the rafters and joists at the cabin and get them out of my workshop. But first I had to dig them out by moving all my other crap out of the way. Yes, there are more pre-cut posts stored in my workshop. And yes, finally we are here building this cabin, but I will be covering this in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.